Alright, so today I wanted to do a teardown video of the AYN Thor, and we're going to start off just by popping open the top here. And I'm only going to do a partial teardown today to get to the point where you would be able to get to if you were going to do button mods or replace the joysticks or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not actually going to pull the screen out or anything, but yeah, we'll take a look at that. We'll also see if we can figure out what's going on with the fan noise I have on mine. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started here. So first I'm going to try to take the lid off. I tried using this pick tool, but it was actually too thick. The seam is quite tight here. So what I'm actually going to do is switch over to a thinner guitar pick style thing. And as you can see here, I'm eventually able to get it underneath the front lip of the screen. I'm just going to work my way around, pop open all these clips, and then from there I can remove the lid. And as you can see here, this is just a pretty simple piece that clips over the top, no screws or anything like that. And then this is what the Thor looks like up close. You can see the display ribbon cable coming through the hinge and connecting to the display right over here underneath the captain tape. But I'm not going to disconnect this part. That's sort of out of the scope of what we're looking at today. But yeah, that's how you get it off. And then if you wanted to, I'll show you really quick. You can insert this little black piece that came with the purple one. I'm not sure if other colors came with that or not. And that hides the ribbon cable underneath the clear area. Personally, I prefer it without the black piece, but I'll just give you a quick look here of what that looks like. And also optionally, you could put a sticker or a picture or some sort of graphic in here and sort of see it through the color semi-transparent. So you can just see what it looks like. It's a quick little Luigi and Yoshi sticker there. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap this back on and we'll focus on the rest of the insides. I would recommend doing that with the screen open. You don't want to press on it with it closed because it could flex the screen since it's only supported with that one little section in the bottom center. So to take apart the main part of the unit, there are 4 screws on the back plate holding that on. There's no special things. You don't have to remove the triggers. There's nothing else you have to worry about being hidden, so we just need to get those 4 locations. I think I'm using a Phillips 1 head here, but we will need a smaller screwdriver once we get farther into there. So let's just go ahead and remove those 4 screws and start getting that back cover off. Okay, so here is kind of the first difficult part I ran into. You'll see some sped up footage in the background, but I'm trying really hard to get in here with this thin guitar pick, and the seams are just super tight. I think that's actually a good thing. It's really good build quality. You don't feel the seams under your hand, but it is very difficult to get a tool into there and get that piece separated from the body. So what eventually I had to kind of do here is actually squeeze one edge of the plastic while forcing the pick in there in order to get enough of a gap. So you'll actually see me kind of squeeze the back half to get this inserted here. Finally, I get the pick in there. Yeah, a bit of a pain, so you're gonna have to be gentle and work your way around to pop this back off. They don't make it particularly easy. And then once I got that back of the hinge open, I kind of tried to squeeze in other spots and pry around it and it didn't work. Ultimately, what I ended up doing is just getting my thumb underneath there and pulling from that back hinge part that I had already opened and just popping the whole thing off. Thankfully here I didn't break any clips or anything like that. Once I had the back edge along the hinge off, I was able to pop it the rest of the way open. And as you can see here, it accidentally turned itself on again and the fan is moving. We'll turn that off in a second. But here is the back plate piece. Again, pretty simple. Some filters for the exhaust and holes for the intake. And let's go ahead and flip this over and take a look at what is underneath everything. Here's a close-up shot of the device with everything intact and just the back cover removed. You can see the battery there in the center taking up a bulk of the space, and then our speakers, joysticks, triggered modules, and all that kind of stuff. So my unit does kind of a weird fan problem that makes this sort of lightsaber noise when you move it around. I spent way too long trying to troubleshoot that and fix it here, and ultimately I was not able to fix that. But if you fast forward to the end of this video, use the markers down in the description. I will include a section where I show all the things that I tried that did not work, but I'll leave that for later and we'll just continue on with the teardown for now. So to remove the fan, there are just 2 screws here holding it on, and then eventually a cable that we will need to unplug to completely remove it. And then you will also need to remove this thin strip of captain tape here that just kind of closes the air gap between the heat fins and the fan that and the 2 screws is the only thing holding it in. I had originally thought other screws were holding it in, but it was just because of that piece of tape, and then it just slides right out easily here. And here is some close-up footage of the fan for the device. Flip it over here so you can see the serial number and all that. If you need to order one of these fans or something like that, then here you go, there is that part number. Okay, after a bunch of troubleshooting trying to get the fan noise to go away, I was unsuccessful, so let's work our way through the rest of the teardown. We can unplug the fan there. Again, here is a close-up of that part number for the fan. There are 3 screws on this little plastic piece beneath where the heat spreader is that we need to remove to take that off. It looks like it houses the haptic motor there, which is glued in or something like that. I'm kind of picking at it, but it doesn't come out. So let's just go ahead and remove those screws and get this piece off. While we're here, I'm going to remove some of these plugs. This, I believe, is for the left speaker. We'll pry that out there. We'll go ahead and move the 2 other plugs here for the right speaker as well as the haptics motor so that we can get this little center plastic piece out fully. And here's that piece. Not a whole lot to it, just kind of covers it up and then houses the, what I am assuming is the haptics motor here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this kind of heat spreader and exhaust assembly. There are 4 or 5 screws. One of them is hidden under this little A sticker, as you'll see in a moment. So there's a screw here, 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 and then the 4th one is here underneath the A. So 4 screws total. Make sure you remove that sticker, move it over so that you can get to all your screws. And here I wasn't sure if there was something holding it on because it was kind of hard to pry off, but it was just the stickiness of the paste, the compound for the CPU thermal transfer. So yes, that pops right off once you have those 4 screws removed. Might just need a little bit of gentle force to unstick it. You can see the back side there where it contacts the cooling thermal pad for the main chip on the device. And here is a gut shot of the device with those pieces removed, and let's move on to the next step. I'm going to go ahead and remove the component on the bottom right here, which I believe is the left speaker module. And here's the little speaker output here. When I flip it over, you can just kind of see that little oval shape there. Next we have this top module that has the joystick and the trigger. Make sure you remove this tiny little ribbon cable here before you pull that up so that you don't rip the joystick cable. And again, we have about 4 screws here, I believe. Once you remove those 4 screws, you should be able to lift the whole thing up again. Make sure you've got that ribbon cable removed. Oh, I forgot one thing. You need to pop off the joystick cap so that the shaft can fit through there. So there's the cap. We'll flip it back over and then it should come out pretty easily. This has the trigger with the magnet as well as the actual joystick module in here. You note that you can't access the backside of the joystick module yet, but there's this little metal cover that's just sticky and you can just pop that off. There's a little bit of adhesive there, and then you can see the actual joystick module. So this is what you would need to do if you needed to replace your left joystick module on the Thor. These are the Jinful Hall effect joysticks it looks like that they are using in here. And then let's pop that back on before the adhesive gets dirty, as we don't really need to do anything in there right now. So here I tried to lift up the flaps and pull out the battery, but it is stuck in there really well. So I would advise not removing the battery unless you have to. It's not that hard to remove, and I actually did unplug the battery here. I'm not sure if I showed that step on screen, but I gave up. It was stuck too hard and I didn't feel like breaking anything today. So I'm just going to leave that in there, but know that it could be replaced. Probably need some isopropyl alcohol or something to get that undone, but I would be super careful so they don't damage something else. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave the battery in, but disconnected for the rest of the teardown. Next up on the bottom left here, I'm going to remove the right speaker as well as joystick. I think these are combined in this module here. Again, there are like 2 screws to remove this module, I think. So let's get those out of the way here. Of course, we got to remember to pop the joystick cap off so we can get that all the way through. So I actually made a mistake here. I should have taken the top section off first so that I could remove that ribbon cable. I accidentally just pulled the ribbon cable out and luckily it did not rip. But if you are watching this, make sure you remove that right trigger assembly first and unplug the ribbon cable before you remove the joystick and speaker module. Don't make the same mistake that I did. And here's that module similar to the other side, except the speaker and the joystick are together in this piece. Okay, so 4 screws on the top here to remove to get this right trigger assembly out. This assembly is actually super simple. There's nothing electronical at all. It is just the magnet for the Hall trigger in there. There's not actually any wiring attaching or anything like that. So once you remove those 4 screws, you can safely pull it off without worrying about damaging anything. And then here is a close-up. Now we have both of the speaker, trigger, and joystick modules removed, and we can see the daughter boards underneath that have the controller stuff like the D-pad and the AVXY on there. I just wanted to take a quick peek. If I carefully remove the thermal pad here, we can see the SoC chip underneath, and then we'll just kind of do a little bit of a close-up here so you can see the chip information there. And yep, there it is. There is the chip exposed bare. I'm going to go ahead and just stick that thermal pad back on for now. So now I'm going to remove the right side daughter board. There is this ribbon cable going from the main board to that daughter board. Remove the clip and remove this. And then there's also a ribbon cable up at the top where the right bumper connects. So lift up that flap and get that out there. We need to get those 2 cables out of the way in order to remove this daughter board. Then once again, we have 4 screws plus a couple screws on the joystick LED light thingamajigger that we need to take care of to get in there. Now I had a little bit of difficulty removing this at first. I thought something was stuck. I think just the joystick semi-translucent ring plastic thing there is sort of friction fit into the purple shell. And I don't think I had to totally pop it off of the backside here, but that did help. I think it would actually be better to kind of push from the front of the device on the LED ring to pop the board out, which I did on the other side. But yeah, you can remove these 2 screws and this ring as well just to be safe. And there we go. Eventually I do break it loose, but that joystick ring pops out. As you can see, the friction was kind of holding it in there. Very simple daughter board, just has the contact pads for the D-pad on the backside. So there is your membrane, there's your button. So if you were going to do a button swap, this is how far you would have to go to remove that membrane and swap out your buttons with another color or something like that, if that's something you wanted to do. So it is a little bit involved to get to that point. I don't think you would have to take off the center part. If you were doing that, you would just have to take off those 2 side pieces. But now let's go ahead and go over to the other side and remove that daughter board as well. Again, make sure you get your ribbon cables out. There's one for the left bumper up at the top, and then there's a large cable right underneath the battery for the whole daughter board. That one's a little tricky to get to with the battery in. Again, I didn't want to take the battery out, so be careful you do not break this flap on this little connector here when you are disconnecting that. I ended up just loosening the flap and then just kind of pivoting the whole circuit board and pulling on it. It is a bit of a pain to get it back in later, as you might see in that footage, but without removing the battery, it's the best I could do. This time I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to removing this joystick ring just to make sure that that is not causing any issues with getting the daughter board out. This time I just pushed from the back side to get that to pop out so it didn't go flying across the room. And then from here, we should just be able to lift this up and out, being gentle. Yep, and there you go. Again, the daughter board's relatively simple. On the other side, we see the dome switches for the D-pad. So if you wanted to do some sort of D-pad tape mod or swap out your D-pad, this is how far you'd have to disassemble it. On the left side of the device, or right side as we're looking at it right now, you can see the membrane for the D-pad down there at the bottom. So that's as far as I'm going to go with the disassembly today. This is disassembled enough that you could do any button mods, joystick replacements, any of that kind of stuff. You don't need to tear it down any farther than this. At this point, all that's left would be removing the battery and the main board and the connection to the screen, but I really don't want to mess around with that today, so I'm just going to call it. And let's just go ahead and we're going to put it all back together, essentially in the reverse order of what we just did. I'm just going to show this footage sped up since you probably don't want to sit here for several minutes while I put it back together. Everything is really just the reverse of what I already did. quick reminder, like when I took it apart, make sure you put the joystick modules in first, which is opposite top and bottom on each side, so that you can plug those ribbon cables in before you put the other plastic piece, because that will cover the ribbon cable. Made that mistake a couple times while putting it back together, so learn from my mistakes, people. So when I had it apart, I did try to do a quiet bumper mod and put a piece of electrical tape. It was promising at first, but once I got it fully plugged back in, as you'll see here, my triggers sometimes, the bumpers sometimes work, sometimes they don't, sometimes they get stuck down. So yeah, make sure, it's probably not a good idea to do a tape mod unless you use some really thin tape. Even one sheet of electrical tape was too much. Bummer. Yeah, and that's it for today. Next section here, I'm just going to go over some of the fan fixes. So if all you were after was tearing it down and putting it back together again, well, that's it. But I will explore some of the fan noise issues starting right now. So if you haven't already watched my initial video, let me just recap. When you move this device around while the fan is going on, at least in my model, but there have been other comments indicating they have the same problem, it kind of sounds like a lightsaber or something, like the fan is hitting or vibrating or something like that. So just take a listen real quick to hear. And then now take a listen to the fan outside of the device. You don't hear the noise anymore. So I'm a little stumped, and you'll see as I kind of test more things why I'm so stumped. So I tried every possible variation of putting pressure on different points, moving my fingers around, trying to not accidentally touch the fan here like I did. But no matter where I put the pressure points, no matter how times I restarted the fan, I could not get the noise to go away just with the fan as is stock. So then I thought I might try some tape mods, and here are some of the mods that I tried. So my first idea was to cut a small square and stick it right in the center and see if that kind of spaced it out a little better and see if that made any difference. But spoiler alert, it did not. So then I thought maybe if I stick little pieces all the way around the perimeter, making sure to not cover the inlets, that I would dampen it somehow that way. But once again, this was unsuccessful. Next up, I once again tried putting tape all the way around the outside, but making it kind of wrap around to the sides to see if something on the side was vibrating. And yet again, another negative on the fix. At this point, I took all the tape back off to do a side-by-side sound test to see if there's a difference. And I do actually think it was slightly quieter when I had all the tape on. As you can hear, it's maybe a little bit louder once I took the tape back off. Next up, I tried just a thin strip along the top edge, but I did a few layers thick to see if maybe that would dampen it better. And once again, that's a negative. At this point, I was quite desperate, and I tried loosening screws, tightening screws, putting my finger in different spots, putting shims in different spots. I could get the noise to change somewhat with varying levels depending on where things are, but I really can't pinpoint what it is. It doesn't actually sound like the blades are hitting something, but it's like the fan itself is resonating slightly off balance, causing resonations in the plastic piece that it's attached to. I really don't know. I spent, I don't know, like a half hour trying to figure this out, and I've just come up blank at the end of the day. So yes, unfortunately couldn't fix the fan noise. AYN, if you're watching this, hopefully you guys can do some tests. Maybe some fan units are just duds and replacements need to be sent out. I honestly don't know, but yeah. Unfortunately, wasn't able to fix the fan noise, and that's it for the video today. So if you've watched this long, thanks for tuning in. Hope this helped you out. Maybe it helps you tear it down if you need to do some repairs yourself in the future. You know, if you're watching this a year from now, hello from past, Based Eric. I hope everything's okay, and have a good one. See ya.